when communism fell through in Bulgaria in November. So in November 11th, 1989, our communist president, who was elected in 1956 and won every election until 1990 and 1989 with 96% and plus. And I never voted for him. I was a kid. I never even knew that you should be voting or whatever you're doing. So he was the only president that I ever had. And they took him down and things started to change. So now suddenly you could board a plane and go to a different country. And my mom worked for the airlines. And she told me it was December. So this happened in November, that he came down in December. I went to this Christmas party and I met these people. They were actually somewhat part of our family, but, you know, kind of distant. And he said, hey, we're going to Canada. And I'm like, Canada? When are you going? We're going soon. What's going on? He said, well, you know, you can fly to Canada and you can ask for political asylum. And then they will take you in. And then what? And then you start learning the language, get a job, and whatever you want to do, you know? And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty interesting. So I asked my mom. I said, hey, do you know anything about this? I do. Well, she worked for the airlines. And she wasn't very happy. And I said, what do you mean you do? And I want to go. I want to do it. And back then I had a girlfriend. She lived in our house. You know, she lived with me. And I asked her, do you want to go? And she said, yeah, I want to go. And I remember was on Saturday. Actually, today is my anniversary. Today is the 23rd. I came in 1990, March 23rd, I came to Canada. I left Bulgaria and went to Canada on this same date like today.
Wow.
And so in order to go to Canada, I asked her, how are we going to do this? And she said, well, first of all, you have to pay for the ticket. And I, well, how much is the ticket? And the amount of the ticket for me and my girlfriend back then was 2,100 leva, L-E-V-A, that's our money. So it's hard to explain it how much it is, but I can explain it in the way, let's say the average salary here what's the average salary for one person? Is it 40 grand or something?
Something like that, yeah. Probably.
40, so let's say it's like 40 grand. Let's say it's 40 just for math, because back then was less anyway. So, so 40 grand was the average salary. I was making probably 2.5 grand a year from our money. So it was a whole annual income for the 2 tickets. But it's kind of hard to come up with, you know, like it's hard to come up with 45 grand, especially when you're like 25 years old, you know. I mean, unless you have a good career and whatever, you know, but not in Bulgaria, you know, unless you're a communist, maybe, yes.
Right.
And so I came up with the money we rented out my girlfriend's apartment. She was actually an orphan, had her own apartment. And we rented it out. Everybody had their own apartment. Nobody rented in Bulgaria. Everybody, you bought it from, you got a government loan and you paid it off within 30 years and everybody had a house. There was no real estate offices, I told you.
Then how do you purchase it? Where do you purchase it from?
They just you apply, I want to get an apartment, and they look at you and see who you are and who your parents are. And if you're a party member, you get it faster. And if your parents are, whatever, you know, it's kind of like a hierarchy, you know.
Yeah.
And then once you apply for that apartment, they look and see where you live right now. I mean, if you have an apartment already, they're not going to sell you another one. So, but when she got hers, you know, her parents passed, so obviously it was her parents' apartment anyway. So, and so I rented that apartment to a friend of mine for a whole year in advance. So we got some money from there. And this friend, she was a painter, so they made actually a studio out of this apartment. You know, they were painting in there and all that stuff. And it was also hard to get anything to rent because nobody was renting, so it was actually a renter's market. So I got good money for this apartment, rented out for 12 months in advance. They paid me the money for the 12 months in advance. And actually, I let them stay forever there because, I mean, I never came back.
Wow.
And so we got that money and bought the tickets. And my mom told me, you know, sometimes when you board the Bulgarian plane, because the plane was going from Sofia to Belgrade, that's in Serbia, and then from Belgrade to Paris, and from Paris to Havana, Cuba. So at the time I bought my ticket, you still could buy only a ticket going to another communist country. But my mom knew that the plane lands in Newfoundland, Canada for a refuel landing, where actually the Russians rent the airport to be able to refuel their planes. Newfoundland, Canada. Gander.
Okay.
So the plane, she said, do not take the plane going on this date from Sofia to Belgrade. We're going to take the train the night before and go to Belgrade. And you're going to board the plane in Belgrade. So I don't have to go through the Bulgarian customs. Because the Bulgarian customs were leery. They knew about that scam, that people are leaving the country, and they were giving you a hard time. Sometimes they delayed the plane so much that you missed your connections.
Why did they care so much about people leaving?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's control.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
So you had to take the train to Belgrade?
So I took with my girlfriend, her name is Katya, or Kate, or whatever. And then we went to Belgrade, and in Belgrade, we went to the airport. And at the airport, we stood in line and got on the plane. And there was a bunch of young people on the plane, my age. And some of them, they were talking. We were kind of like staying aside. We don't wanted to tell anybody anything, And then the plane, when we boarded the plane, they came in and collected all our passports after the plane took off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they did with the passports. We didn't know what they were going to do with it. But long story short, when we landed in Paris, they put you in a special room, like a transit room, until you wait for the plane to go from Paris to Havana. And so you could not ask for political asylum while you were in Paris.
From Paris to Havana?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it went from Paris to Canada.
No, from Paris to Havana.
Oh, okay.
But it refuels. It stops in Newfoundland, Canada to refuel. It's not a scheduled stop for you to get off.
So there's a pit stop in Canada on the way to Havana.
In Newfoundland, Canada, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So, and they, we boarded the plane in Paris. That's when I understood why they took the passports, because you cannot leave. You don't have a passport. The passports are with the pilots.
Got it.
So you go on your plane and you move on. They didn't want any refugees over there. So basically, this iron curtain that first the communists didn't let you travel turned to the iron curtains where the Westerners didn't let you come. The communists said, you can go wherever you want to. And then the Westerners said, we don't want no immigrants. So they blocked you. So you could not go anywhere. So that's why going to Cuba. So
communist
country, you're allowed to. There is the Warsaw Pact countries, 7 countries. Czechoslovakia, Hungary, East Germany, Bulgaria, Romania, and so on. Poland as well. And you could travel to those countries as much as you want to. You can take the train, you can take the plane, whatever you want to. Nobody cared. But if you want to go to West Germany or Belgium or Holland, no way. You had to go to the embassy, you had to apply, and 99% of the time you were denied.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're taking off, approaching Cuba, and now we start talking, and the people on the plane, half of them are Bulgarian, the other half are French tourists that we picked up in France. And the Bulgarians start you start kind of looking at people, and you start thinking, hey, this is a cool guy, he's probably cool, And they all were kind of escaping, so they were all on the same wavelength, I guess. So I started talking to one of the guys, said, what's the plan? He said, well, so usually they have a cop on the plane, and he might prevent us from coming down or whatever. They were just yakking, I don't think there was a cop on the plane. What the hell is the cop going to do on the plane? Right. The plane is in Canada landing.
Right.
You have to leave it for security, for safety reasons. You have to leave the plane while they refuel it. Okay. So you cannot be on the plane. So
okay, got it.
So, but they were saying if somebody tries to stop us, we'll to jump him, and then you guys go, and So we land over there, and as soon as you land, I was told, you see this first cop that is down there, and you tell him, I'm looking for political asylum. And this was March 23rd, and in Paris was 74 degrees. I had a short sleeve shirt. We landed in Newfoundland. You could not see, there was white and ice, and there was the guy with the big muffs doing the plane thingy. And it was so freaking cold, and you had to walk from the plane to the terminal. They didn't have like a bus or anything like this. And it wasn't a long walk, but it was probably like, I would say, 25 degrees. And you were so excited, I mean, that you were not cold. Short sleeve shirt. I just remember like somebody hit you with a steel frozen hammer right in the forehead. I mean, you were so cold in here, but you were like, I got to get in there. I got to get in there. So we got in there and we asked the first cop. And he just took us to a separate room.
How many of you?
62.
62 of you.
From one plane. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And nobody was saying anything until we were probably like half an hour away. Nobody was saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Right.
No trust at all. Yeah. You can never tell what's going on. I mean, there immediately somebody's going to go and snitch. And I was told not to bring any luggage with me, so I had only a carry-on. And in the carry-on, I was told, of course, you listen to people that don't know anything about things, you know, that they said you have to bring a suit because you have to go to court and you have to look presentable. So all I'm packing is, I'm going to Cuba, and all I'm packing is a toothbrush, a nice suit, and a wool overcoat going to Cuba, you know, kind of like sketchy, you know. Nobody looked in the luggage anyway, but... And I don't have any luggage on the plane because you don't get your luggage off. It stays on the plane. They don't go and get it for you, no matter what happens. It's lost.
Right.
They processed us as much as they can. You know, they took your passport. So they kept possession of your passport. They didn't check it, and they just kept possession of it. Gave you some kind of a written note paperwork and told you, just wait outside. I mean, there's going to be a cab. And you, and you, like we were five of us. Five of us. Said, you all go with cab number, blah, blah. All right, we go outside. And just like in the movies, there comes a yellow cab. I've never seen a real yellow cab in my life. You know, it's a Chevy Capri, like just in the movies, you know. And you're like, am I dreaming? Or you're super excited, super afraid, and totally confused. Emotions all over the place. So we sit in, and I remember 4 people sitting on the back seat. This is how big that car was. You know, for us, that big. Because if you go to Bulgaria, now most of the cars that look like a limo, they're the size of a Toyota Corolla. Nobody drives in Europe big cars like here, you know, these huge cars. I mean, there is some people do, but 99% do not. So they take us with this cab, and they take us to a motel. And that motel was called the Fox Moth Motel. And had a hanging airplane in the lobby, like one of those biplanes, like a really cool plane. And it was a brand new motel. Nobody was there ever. And they just opened it for us. So we go in there. I get a room with a king-size waterbed. Never seen a waterbed in my life, only in the movies. Just the movie continues. And wrestling on TV. You ever watch wrestling on TV?
Like WWF?
Yes, have heard of it. I mean, we're in heaven, you know. We're laying on the bed, blah, 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 you know, like, this is so cool, watching the thing. Phone rings. I am sorry to bother you this late, but we usually close our restaurant at 9:30 at night. But the chef stayed for you guys and made some food if you want to come down and have something to eat before you go to bed. We'll go downstairs. Hamburgers and Coca-Cola.
Coke and hamburgers.
The movie goes on.